Hello, a warm welcome to the Iris Extract for Documents version 5 Mailroom demo. You will learn from the following presentation how Iris Extract for Documents can help you to optimize your business processes. We also call Iris Extract for Documents in the following: X4D or just Xtract. You will see a selection of application scenarios such as automated document separation, document classification and sorting, invoice processing, purchase order processing, and finally, hybrid forms processing, combining the extraction of handwritten information and machine-written semi-structured data. Let's start with the live demo. On the right-hand side, you see the Iris Extract cockpit. On the left-hand side, you see a mail client and the Xmail fetcher. First, I'd like to send the document by email to a mail account that's configured on a mail server on this virtual machine. I enter a subject so that we can identify it later on and attach the document. We'll have a look at the document in a second. I send it and we can close the mail client. In the meantime, I'd like to use the Xmail fetcher. After sending, we use the Xmail fetcher to import the document from the mail account on the mail server. In a production environment, the Xmail fetcher usually is running as a service to do its job automatically. You can configure it to pull as often as you like. In our demo, I'd like to show how you can pull manually. On the right-hand side, we see that the batch has arrived in the system. This allows us now some moments to have a look at the document that we send by email. You see that it consists of 9 pages, and if we click through it, we see that it contains a 2-page delivery order, a 3-page HR document, an employment contract, a 2-page invoice, a 1-page delivery note, and finally, a 1-page purchase order. Let's close it and wait for the results of the first job. You have seen that between these parts there's no barcode or document separator sheet or blank page, because in the first step, X4D will now separate the documents automatically. We can see the results of this operation when the batch is forwarded from the Analyze queue to a specific Verify role, which in our scenario is called Mailroom separation. And here we go. Let's have a look at the results. We're going to open the Verify. We see the job list of the respective queue. A Verify queue can be attached to a specific role and a role to a user or user group. This allows us to manage who's allowed to access which job. Let's open the job. We see the result. We originally sent 1 document, which is now showing up as 5 documents. Let's go through it. You see that all the documents are separated properly, just based upon document inherent data, to let the software decide about the start and the end of a document. We commit the job by pressing the plus key on the numpad. Confirm that there's no further job we'd like to work on, and then close the Verify and get back to the cockpit. In this next step, the analyzer will decide which department should receive which document. And here we go. We open the Verify again to have a look at the results, and here they are. What we see is that we now have for each of the 5 documents a classification result. This result is marked in green. Green marked text in a data field means that the user is required to confirm the result. If this is necessary or not is a simple checkbox in the solution configuration. In our demo scenario, it makes sense, otherwise the job wouldn't have stopped in Verify but would have immediately been forwarded to the next step. Since we would like to demo the results step by step, we chose this option in this scenario. So what we see is that the first document has been identified to be sent to the distribution department, which is the correct result for a delivery document. We confirm the results by pressing the plus key on the number pad. The cursor moves to the next field that requires an activity. Since in our actual case, each document only has one field and all fields need to be confirmed, it moves to the next field. And here we see the Human Resource Department, which is concerned with the employment agreement. The Procurement Department will receive the invoice and it will also get the delivery note. And finally, the Sales Department will get the purchase order. We commit the job and see what happens. We can observe some activities in the cockpit. The original batch is now separated into 4 sub-batches according to the 4 different classification results. Each classification result routes the respective documents into its individual next job. Please remember that we had 2 documents with the result Procurement Department. Let's wait until all jobs have passed the Analyze queue and end up in the respective Verify queue. We will start with Procurement Department because for the invoice in this batch, we'll wait another job. We can now see the results of the job that was foreseen for the classification result Procurement Department. Both documents have come up with a more detailed classification result. The first one has been identified as invoice and some additional indexes have been captured. When I now use the tab instead of using the plus key on the number pad, I move to the next field and you can see that the system highlights where it has identified the information. The supplier information is based upon a master data lookup. The date was found by searching the youngest date that is not in the future. The document number was determined by firstly looking for a suitable keyword, identifying document number, and then searching next to the keyword for a reasonable number. The same for the next document, which has been identified as delivery note. Let's commit the job and see what happens next. Back in the cockpit, we can see the next step. The batch from the Procurement Department is now split into 2 batches. One batch, the delivery note, is sent to be exported and will finally appear in the trash queue, whereas the invoice was sent to Analyze with the next job to extract all data from the invoice. The trash queue is a short-term depository. X4D will not delete fully processed data immediately. It is possible to keep the data for several months, but we recommend to keep it for a few days in order to be able to recover data just in case that data is lost in the subsequent system. Let's now have a look at all the other results one by one, starting with the Sales Department. In this demo scenario, we have passed over the purchase order for subject matter review to the Sales Department. Of course, this is a demonstration scenario. In fact, different companies will have different process workflows and a different organization structure to the one built into this demo scenario. The purchase order has been extracted by the default setting on the pre-configured solution scenario for purchase order processing. It is pre-configured with the industry vertical requirements for PO processing. This includes the header data such as PO number, date and delivery date, but more important are the line item details. Let's have a look. I use the plus key of my numpad to jump to the next field that requires an activity. You see that the system has identified line by line automatically. Again, this is not template-based. We use a very intelligent logic, which can then be applied to multiple types to identify line items. The primary one for PO is searching for an article number, but there are also other alternatives built in. You also see that by default, the article number needs to be confirmed line by line. The reason is quite simple. In more than 60% of purchase orders we have sampled, there are no totals of the line items present. Hence, an automated validation by constraint logic is not often possible. So to be sure to have captured all lines in such a case, it is recommended to confirm it one by one, or at least all at once if this is preferred by the user. So let's commit this job and run the next. And this is the Human Resource Department. We can see the 3-page employment contract classified as such, and additionally some of the main indexes to allocate it to the correct case for further management in a subsequent HR system. A signed contract might be the start of the onboarding process managed by the HR, ECM, or a BPM system. By the way, this is a very simple example for an IDR case management application. The class of the document triggers the process afterwards, and the indexes trigger the workflow inside the process. Please remember that the methods to identify data in cases of unstructured documents are generic ones, and they are not template-based. The extracted data are just sample indexes and can be enriched in a custom way according to the needs of the respective HR, ECM, or ERP system, whichever scenario might be relevant for the customer. Let's commit the job and return to the cockpit. To have a look at the next application, the distribution department. The delivery order processing application comes up with a custom capture scenario. It makes use of several features. Master data lookup to identify the point of sales to deliver to, the document number, the delivery date, the line items, and handwritten information plus checkboxes from page 2. This application is a good example for a hybrid forms application. The header data is picked up from the first page. The line items are recognized per page and collected in one view. The position of the footer data, either OCR or ICR fields, depends on the number of table lines. Please note that in general this is not a template-based capturing, but a generic free text-based one. The recognition of their position happens generically. By using the plus key on the numpad, we confirm the point of sales and move to the next field that requires an activity. The system stops because an article text has not been picked up. In case of the special German B character, the OCR cannot replace it and returns internally with a reject. Hence, the field result finally stays empty. Alternatively, we could have configured the solution to overcome such effects, but we decided to keep it in order to illustrate by the way that users shouldn't expect a 100% accuracy in character recognition. This will almost never be true, and hence, sometimes we need to capture data manually. Okay, let's move on to some of the footer fields. I position the cursor in the Boxes in Total field, and if we just change the figure, you will see that we get a notification. This notification comes up with the information that there is a field constraint. The connection between other field results is void. If this is void from the very beginning, the system would return with the respective information and the field would require an activity. Since it is a field constraint, we can check it vice versa, so we move to one of the warehouse fields, change the figure there too, and immediately get a similar notification. Such small constraints allow a very efficient and ergonomic verification. We will see some more later in the invoice processing solution. So let's move on, but this time with another highlight. So far, you have seen the Verify Rich client. In this last step of verification, I'd like to highlight the Web Verify. We open the browser and the Web Verify is configured as starting page. As soon as it is available, I only need to enter the user-specific credentials. And in my case, this happens by auto-completion. We select the role, here it is, the accounting department, and select the batch from the job list. With a first glance, we recognize that the design is different, but please note that the features aren't. Within the captured data on the right-hand side, you see captured data like Supplier by Master Data Lookup, Company Code by Master Data Lookup, Invoice Number by a Key Value Search, Document Data, the youngest one that is not in the future, and the Document Type, which is an invoice with order reference, and the respective purchase order reference, Master Data Lookup from ERP's transaction data. Then there is a custom field for presentation purposes called My Search 1. We will need this in a moment. And there is a barcode field. The default invoice processing solution offers a lot more fields. We've simply deactivated these fields and their respective search rules within the solution design environment. Any field can also be reactivated anytime by a simple click, but the solution design is not today's topic. We use the plus key again to navigate and stop, firstly at the invoice number, and secondly, I move the cursor to My Search 1 because before moving ahead, I'd like to demonstrate a specific feature, field training. We now click with the left mouse button on a string at our choice. Let's choose the delivery date. Next, I press F12 on my keyboard and receive the message, Field My Search 1 was trained. What does this mean? From now on, the system knows that it shall pick up a date for this vendor at this place. Let's check this. I delete the content of the field and, by an additional command, I reset the document result by reanalyzing it from Verify. I do so by choosing Recreate Document Result from the respective menu. Now the system is reanalyzing the document by considering the controlled learning from field training. Since the document has been completely reanalyzed, you firstly see that the invoice number needs to be confirmed again and My Search 1 indeed contains the selected date from the training. Why is this feature helpful? Let's assume the invoice number could not be identified for a specific creditor by generic searches. For example, the keyword is on the far left, whereas the value is on the far right side of the document. In such a case, a field training will overrule and replace the generic search, and the value can be captured automatically again. So empowering the system with controlled learning features, and this is not the only one that we offer, allows to extract data that can't be found by generic searches. By using the plus key of my numpad, I now move to the next field that requires an activity. Please note that we are now in tab 2, which is marked blue on the right-hand side. Beside plus key and control arrow up or down, the Web Verify offers to click on a tab to select a specific view. Further, we can see that all items have been recognized and that the items are allocated to the one from the purchase order apart from 2 lines. We need to take the decision manually because the software is using single price and quantity to allocate the respective line from the purchase order's transaction data. In our case, we need to select 10, and since we have 2 issues, you can see it here. The software will automatically fill the left one. Why was this the case? If you compare for these 2 lines the amount and the quantity, you see that both figures in both lines are the same, so that software was not able to allocate the line from the invoice to the corresponding line in the transaction data from the ERP system. The line item identification in case of invoices is mainly based upon identifying a mathematical equation of figures on the document. Single price multiplied with quantity must equal the total amount. And of course, we have built in a lot of alternatives to this basic rule. This means that any 3 figures together in a reasonable geometrical range but anywhere on the document that fulfill these rules are candidates for line items. With different other AI-based cross-checks, we finally identify the table and can extract the lines. We can check this simply by changing a total amount in a line. Let's take the total amount from line 1 and delete the first figure. You see that the system immediately returns with a notification that the mathematical constraint is void. Since the system now knows what is a line and where to find the lines, we also have additional options. One of them is the following. I position the cursor in the first line and the column article number. I move with the mouse on the document and pick the first one there to fill the field. Then I press F9 on my keyboard and instantly the whole column is filled. Of course, I could train now the system by pressing F12 to pick up this information for this vendor if it's always going to be needed. Please remember that in cases of POs, there is no footer data to check total sums of line items against PO totals. But in case of invoices, there are. Let's check this. We have changed already the total amount of the first line, so let's move to the footer by clicking on the Footer tab. We immediately see the notification by the system that there's now a mismatch between the value of goods and the sum of total amounts from the line items. Let's get back to the line items and re-enter the correct value. Back to the footer, we now see that the note has been removed. The total sum of the line items matches the value of goods. Let's commit this final job, close the Internet Explorer, and have a look at the exported results. Here we go. Let's have a look at the data we have exported. Since there is no subsequent system installed to export the results to, we have exported them to the file system. For each application, we have created 3 results: a result.xml with the captured data, a simple searchable PDF, and a searchable PDF compressed by IHQC. You can recognize that the file size of the compressed PDF compared to the file size of the simple searchable PDF is about 34 KB smaller. This is less than half of the size of the searchable PDF. Let's have a look at its quality. And it looks great. And finally, let's have a look at the result.xml, but please don't expect anything else other than data displayed in an XML structure. You can see the field header, the content of each field is given, and the coordinates of each field are exported. Of course, we can customize the structure according to the individual needs of the subsequent system to allow a smooth transaction-safe handover of data. This is it for our demo today. We hope we were able to highlight some of the key features and capabilities of the Iris Xtract solution. If you would like some more information, please do not hesitate to visit www.irisdatacapture.com to learn more about Iris Xtract for Documents or see how our partners have used the solution to deliver exceptional solutions for their customers. Thank you for your interest in Iris Xtract.